We are now at times where we have portal, so we are going to begin the show. So what I'm going to do before we begin this to ask members to just test the microphone. Just want to make sure that we are testing microphone and make sure that's on. I recognize the Facebook that we did last night. We had a council meeting last night, so I so much appreciate you here. Like I said, all right, so with that, following the special meeting of the Suisun City Council of the Suisun City Council, today is Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025, and the time is 6:34 p.m. This meeting is taking place at the Joseph Dawson Community Center, and we are going to begin with a roll call. We have Councilmember Shepherd, Vice Mayor Dawson, Councilmember Washington, absent. Councilmember Powell, absent. Mayor Hernandez here. If you want to note, pretty feedback. Councilmember Washington notified the public in this council that she would have health-related items take place today, so that she would probably not be able to make it this evening. She could be here, but that was a tentative. So I just want to have the project. So with that, we're going to go ahead and begin by taking general public comment items. So these are general public items. And we're going to start with Don, the mayor, and these are just general public comments that we have 3 minutes that will be provided to the public. Clarification question, sir. Which streets? Are you, there's an update regarding the streets?
Seagull and Crane.
Question.
Seagull and Crane. I live on the corner.
Next have Shelly. Come to Jenalee.
Hi, my name is Jenalee, and I want to thank you all for all your service. And secondly, I want to bring that for I live at 7 College Street, and I the parking lot in front of my building, in front of that building, has been potholes for years. I've requested it to be fixed. They repave the area, right, with the white line for parking, but it doesn't solve the accident that people want to contributing, customers complaining, and so that's something current I think it's just part of the gym. The other issue I have is the park area where the depot is. Is there something currently, could be something you guys do to monitor how long there? Also, indecent exposure, people just walk over the on there. It's almost like I want to be direct my sight to the right, not like to the left. So I'm there 24/7. So it's uncomfortable. I don't feel safe sometimes with the rear guys. They think that whatever's not locked out is working. So that's very uncomfortable feeling. So I like from the officer conflict, maybe a present bill with helpful. Yeah, my staff walking out the side door of my building, they said that's the only exit, and there's places for people to hide. We tried our best to do our best. Team up to the house, but 3 o'clock in the morning, walk out to the work, and somebody's there trying to tell you they're very uncomfortable because they're not looking out for the interests of others. So the other thing is the trash closure that all the restaurants share. The big issue, picture of public in their trash house last week. I'm trying to make that home. We monitor it, I drive by, I walk the blocks with my mom. I know it's a big for your department, but I just have to scare your staff to go out there for so those 3 things. For something current that but I appreciate all you're doing before.
Thank you. We'll have the record show that Councilmember Powell has served this at 6:41. We next have Ariel. And you.
Evening. I have a question for the city manager. And by the way, I'm Ariel Garcia, and I'm a member of Solano Together. First of all, thank you for talking about our able to do it. It's unfortunate I was sick that day, otherwise I would answer this question. So as a background to my question, in the city council meeting, you sought an okay for a reimbursement agreement, which included hiring all consultants, bypassing the request for proposal and competitive bidding. And then a reimbursement agreement was signed and published. And here's my question. There was a portion in the reimbursement agreement, in that agreement, about conflict of interest, which is good. Stated that the local planning group warrants that they will not be involved in any financial transaction with the developer. they also are, but they were not involved in the 12 months. I have three questions. My first question of the board is, how does that ensure that the global planning group will not be hiring as part of the associate or staff, anyone who was involved in the California developer histological allocation? My second question is, the two other consultants, PKS, traffic studies, and then development economic planning systems for financial and fiscal studies, were not included in that conflict of provision. Does that mean they are no longer part of the project? And question number three is, the legal consultant, who is still part of the project, was also not included in the conflict of interest provision. And it's still part of the project because at the end of the agreement, the support of first stating that the communications, they should be in the FCC, the communications. So my question is, are legal consultants exempted from the contract? This is not section. I'm not sure about. So those are my questions.
That is time. Thank you. We typically don't have back and forth at this time, doing just general public comment on what we do as we see it, but I do want to provide a good see if the city manager would like to address it.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll try to kind of condense the questions and answer. So I think the first key is that we are hiring the best team that we can find to do the work related to this project. We believe when we talk about our legal counsel, they are dedicated both contractual relationships and their legal ethics to work solely for the city of Suisun City and all of our collective interests. We believe that legal team has a depth and breadth, including the literal person that wrote the book on CEQA is in that firm to represent us from a CEQA legal perspective as we move forward. And the remaining consultants, of which more continue to come to council to build this entire team, are the best and the brightest in the industry, because it is our job to ensure that not just the city's interests, but the collective region's interests can be met along this journey. And so I'm confident in the practices we took to retain these people. I'm confident in the resumes of these firms. They are decades long in service, doing some of the most amazing works in their field. And we believe that team is what we need to do to ensure we get the best results out of this exploration, to be able to advise council so they can make the proper decision, to be able to advise the public as we work towards the draft PIRs that will be published to all of you for comment, as it would be in any process like this. As far as conflict of interest, all of the parties, again, by their ethics, by their individual contracts, are specifically required to work only on behalf of and in support of Suisun City. I'm confident that our attorneys have done their legal review on those contracts to ensure that we meet all of those standards. And I will say I'm confident that everybody on our team, both legally and just in their own professional ethics, have been since we started working with them and will continue to be solely in our interest, the region's interest relative to exploring this project. But I appreciate the question, and I think it's a good one for us to answer.
And yet, just to provide some additional, there is no back and forth. There's no back and forth. But however, we welcome the conversation from staff. The only other context I'll just provide on the legal end is this council vetted the attorneys that we brought on to support, ensuring that we have the best of the best to come in and ensure that the way that Suisun was going to navigate any contract with any entity would be a satisfaction of not only the city, but the community that we represent. In addition to that, we also have a secondary backup to
check the work of the legal attorneys that we brought, which is our own city attorney. So we have 2 legal pieces that are checking that particular work. At the end of the day, however, though we bring really great experts, we have our city attorney and his entire team and staff. We see the main representative here with us who works with us on a daily basis, but he represents an entire firm that works with us as well. We, the public, all of the documents that have to come before us will be public documents. So we as a public also have a say in ensuring that what is being presented in front of us is at this muster. It has to pass what we believe is something that will support the efforts of this community in the city. So there is additional layers that we have as well. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move forward with the beginning of the state of the city. I know that many members have questions, like the gentleman that we have today. Suisun City has a lot of work that's been taking place. I'm just going to stand here so I can actually look at this presentation. Before I begin, however, for those who do not know, all of us who are participating with us maybe for the first time, if we could just have those members who are here at the table go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Jenalee. I am Recreation Parks and Marina Director.
My name is Patrick Enright. I'm the city attorney for the law firm of Richard Watson.
I am Bret, city manager of Suisun City.
Sorry, hi, I'm Washington, City Council.
I'm in Powell, City Council.
Jenalee Dawson, Vice Mayor Shepherd, Suisun City Council.
Harold Roth, the police chief.
Brian Lopez, your fire chief.
Documentary Diol, Finance Director for the City of Suisun City.
Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and begin, and I do want to just note for the record, 6:45, I have Washington. So with that, we're going to go ahead and begin by talking a little bit about where we've been. So a little bit of where we've been is we set out various goals this past fiscal year, and to the credit of this entire council, and the individuals who are being represented by the different initiatives that we've been taking place, we accomplished every goal that we set out to do. We accomplished obtaining new businesses, new community initiatives, passing Measure S, receiving an accolade of awards that are located at the back of the table right there. New strategic plans and providing a new legislative platform, and all with a small but mighty team. So to talk a little bit about this, one of the things that we did is talking about new businesses. You will have noted that we have now Tractor Supply that's opened. Most recently, you'll see a good neighborhood meeting coming up for Dutch Brothers. They are the next business that's going to go into that lot. And there's 2 more businesses slated to go in that direction. We have brought in we have a new business that you're seeing being built in downtown Suisun. That is Dr. Nari's dentist spa location that's being built right now. And we have Connections for Life that just moved into Suisun City and the Sunset 333 building. As much as we have new businesses and grand openings, we do acknowledge that there's some changes happening to our downtown, including some new owners to buildings that are causing some changes from small businesses that have been established there in the past, who were not able to continue with those leases. So I just want to acknowledge that as much as we're bringing a lot of new businesses, and we have quite a few lined up to open up in the next year or two, we just want to acknowledge that there's various changes happening in place. We've been doing a lot of community engagement. This particular, if you see those first pictures, that's our homelessness community forums. Homelessness, as you've heard already from the commentary, has continued to be a topic that we continue to engage with. So we bring the community members together. We've implemented initiatives, 3 of those initiatives that community members asked for were implemented this past year. So we're starting to see some of those changes. You'll start seeing a cleaner community because we've implemented the legal dumping team to support some of the legal trash that's taking place, less encampments and more work. We partnered up with various community members to bring in initiatives like our new rainwater garden in front of City Hall. We have new strategic plans. Those include the norms and procedures for the City Council, a new strategic plan for the years 2025 to 2030. It includes working with our staff. They've been doing tabletop exercises for emergency response. What does Suisun do when there is a natural disaster like an earthquake or a major fire? Like, what do we do? So our staff has been doing some training on how to be addressing some of those situations and staff members doing various initiatives. We also have engaged some new commissions like the Suisun City Parks and Rec Commission, who has been doing some outreach, new initiatives on the community. We have the new beautification team. We have the new economic development. We have the businesses in our community, the other strategic partners that are helping us shape up Suisun City. We've received a lot of grant funding this past fiscal year. We've implemented new initiatives. For example, did you know that in Solano County, Suisun City has the largest child obesity rate? These are serious concerns that we've tried to address. We received grant funding to provide outdoor initiatives. We just completed the first autism-based walk run to include children with neurodiverse needs. We've done our first youth mile 5K at Brush Ranch. About 100 people were there this past weekend. Most of them had never been to Brush Ranch. We've included initiatives like providing microtransit out to Solano and Brush Ranch area. And we have our pilot center, and we received funding for a command vehicle when we touch base on those pieces. We also, this slide is a little out of order. The key element is that we passed Measure S. So this was one of our biggest goals in the resiliency plan. Today, it is July of 2025. As of November of last year, if we did not pass Measure S by 2026, we would have had to dissolve as a city. So we would have had to cease to exist. If Measure S had not passed by mid-year of this year, which was February, we would have had to start to lay off some of our personnel. We would have had to start to create shortages in our programs and services to our community. The issue has been extremely, extremely serious. And we've had one of the highest voter approval rates for a tax measure. We increased to 1.75% for the next 15 years. So we also have a time window for how long we have this tax measure. And so some of the things we were trying to address are things that are already a concern for our community. One of the priorities was potholes that they still need to be addressed. Some of our lighting, some of the programs and services, public safety. Because of our community, and it is actually to our community's resiliency, who heard us and heard that we were hurting for the opportunity to simply survive. They said we are willing to save Suisun City and continue to be a city. So this mid-year budget, instead of cutting programs and services and personnel, we were able to at least keep the same level of services, which were already hurting. We're not all, great yet, but we were at least able to maintain services and increase slightly. We were able to add positions such as 2 firefighters, 2 police officers, and 2 members to our public works team. So we're still working. It's a little bit of a ladder to try to get to some of these goals, but we're making progress. So Measure S was successful because of our community and many people who are here, who volunteered their time, many of our unions in our city, who went out and knocked on doors, many of our council members who knocked on doors, as well specifically Councilmember Powell, Vice Mayor Dawson, who helped lead this initiative in the campaign. But I want to talk a little bit more. What does Measure S mean to us, and translate that to actual dollars and impact to Suisun City? I do want to recognize our Measure S committee the chair, which is Ruth Forney. Measure S is actually, there's a board that reviews these tax dollars. I'm gonna hand it off, I'm gonna introduce Director Bill, and I can ask slide deck change. And she's gonna talk to us a little bit more about Measure S is our finance director.
Thank you, Mayor. So our measure as Mayor mentioned earlier, it got a review in November, last year, 2024, on November 5th. So now the new tax rate we have is 1.75%, and the total term became 25 years. And this new measure with the additional tax rate, it will generate additional approximately $3 million per year. So mainly this Measure S does have a specific committee which is called Oversight, a General Tax Oversight Committee. That committee has 5 members in that committee, and it's a 5-year term for each member. So thank you all the committee members for your services. Then we have 2 Measure S committee meetings annually. One is usually around April, May. The second meeting we usually hold around December or January. Measure S does have a separate audit done every year, and that's annual audit, obviously. Then for the accounting records, we do have separate fund for the Measure S, which is called Measure S Fund number 12, if you're looking in our budget. So these are the allocations for Measure S funds. So we are projecting that the next fiscal year 25-26, actually the current fiscal year started yesterday, will bring in about $6.9 million in revenue, and that all those funds are specifically allocated to public safety. So we have about 57% of this revenue going to police services, and 40% going to fire services. Then we have 3% going to other services, which is mainly the IT department. So this chart is providing you data for 3 years. We have fiscal year 24. The blue column is the fiscal year 23-24. The first column is the adopted budget, and the next to it is the actual year to date. So for fiscal year 23-24, the audit is pending, it's almost done. So it will be available for public hopefully next month. Then the middle column is fiscal year 24-25, which we just completed 2 days ago. So we are still working on those numbers, closing those books. But for the revenue, we do have a 3 to 4 months lag when we receive payment from the state. So that's why the year-to-date numbers are not matching our projections yet, just because we still have 2 quarters that's outstanding to be received from the state. For fiscal year 25-26, we just adopted that budget a week ago, and we are projecting to bring in about $6.9 million in revenue. And the majority of that, those funds are being allocated to public safety. So this is all for me. I will pass it back to our mayor.
Thank you. So we have, as this set up a little bit more, we had the accomplishment of being able to pass Measure S, but as we see, all of Measure S as what is voted on was to support public safety. That is where it's currently allocated and goes to. It's just to be able to maintain our local service for police and fire. So we hear the need for more, as was mentioned by one of our residents here, and that's what we're working towards. So with that, it looks like if we can get to where we are, and we'll have our Vice Mayor, Dr. Jenalee Dawson, present.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm just gonna take this and get my notes on tax. So where we are, through the next couple of slides, we're really gonna highlight where the city is currently. And then, from there, we're gonna move on to where, we are gonna go and the strategy that's in place. So with that, I really wanted to highlight some of the public safety statistics. So the Suisun City Police Department maintains a strong response time, currently at 5.3 minutes for priority 1 calls, demonstrating their community commitment to efficient public safety services. The city has seen a 5% decrease in violent crime rate, down by 2.9 per 1,000 residents. And that's due to the department's proactive patrols and community engagement efforts. Property crime has also decreased by 2%, now at 17.2 per 1,000 residents. And this has really been supported by the initiatives like installation of the block cameras and expansion of our community services officer program that the mayor mentioned earlier. However, Suisun City has 0.9 officers per 1,000 residents, which is well below the county average of 1.4. The city is actively working to address the staffing gap through ongoing recruitment efforts. The city council engineer recently approved the hiring of 2 additional police officers who we're currently working to get on board. More recently, we just implemented a beta security program for the downtown waterfront, which is helping to address unwanted loitering, and is showing significant signs of deteriorating bad behavior. So we're gauging and watching to see how that can support the downtown business district. And then in regards to fire department responds to about 3,850 calls services annually, with 70% of those being medical related. Their ISO rating of class 4 has been maintained from the previous year. Currently, the fire department is operating 2 engines, and we've recently staffed our first firefighter paramedic to the department. Additionally, I think in this last week, the fire department has completed their 2025-2030 community-driven strategic plan. Despite public safety department's strong performance, the city faces challenges staff levels that are well below regional averages. The city is pursuing grant opportunities, exploring shared service models with Swan County to enhance our public safety capabilities, while addressing our resource constraints. So just a little background on our community demographics. Currently, our community has a population of 20,743, which has grown steadily over the past decade with a 5% increase in the last census. The average age of our community is 37, slightly younger than the state average, but it indicates balanced community of families and working professionals. The largest group is 35 to 54, making up 31% of the population. The second largest is the 5 to 17 youth, with 22% of the population, and our seniors 65 and older is about 14% of our community. The demographics that are shared here really shape our service priorities, from family-oriented recreation to the programs and our senior services that we offer within the community. Then we'll just highlight a little bit of information on our housing affordability. So it has been noted that housing affordability is a major issue in Suisun City, with only 38% of our households spending more than 30% of their income on housing. This financial strain creates challenges for many families and can limit their ability to save and spend on other important needs. Our home ownership rate is 62%, which exceeds the state average, but first-time buyers are still facing difficulties entering the housing market. Some home prices have increased by 9% year over year, outpacing income growth and further reducing affordability. Addressing these housing affordability challenges a key priority for our community and our housing strategies. And we aim to increase the diversity of our housing options at all income levels while also preserving the character and quality of the neighborhood. Next, the economic and employment profile. So some of our community patterns. Community patterns show that substantial 68% of our residents commute to outside jobs in the city, highlighting the need for more local employment opportunities. Our strategic initiatives focus on attracting businesses and fostering entrepreneurship and to create more quality jobs for our community. Aligning new employment opportunities with resident skills and education is going to be essential for building a stronger local economic foundation. By focusing on our workforce development and business attraction, we aim to strengthen our local economy while reducing commute times and improving quality of life of our community members. Here, this is a graph that really speaks volumes. Here you see that we have currently workers employed in the city but are living outside. That means they're coming in for jobs here in Suisun City, but do not live here, is 2,685 individuals. Working and living and employed within the city limits is 556, but we have nearly 13,335 individuals who are working outside of the city and community, a lot of them towards the Bay Area, the Sacramento region. All right, and then as we wrap up, just going to highlight a few more things. The capital improvement needs. Currently, we're facing significant infrastructure backlog of $100 million across all of our infrastructure needs. This translates to an annual funding gap of about $15 million between what is currently allocated and what's needed to properly maintain our assets. A large portion of the road network is in poor condition with a pavement condition index of rating of an X at the moment. This requires considerable investment to improve our road quality and ensure safe transportation for all of our residents. Ongoing maintenance is also needed for our harbor to ensure continued maritime access and economic viability for waterfront businesses. And so these are the things that we're working to address and challenge through prioritize investment, seeking grant funding, exploring new revenue options to meet the long-term infrastructure needs. And then here our current challenges. So as we just mentioned, one of our biggest current challenges are revenue constraints. Our city is facing critical revenue constraints, which is putting significant pressure on our budget and our ability to deliver essential community services and infrastructure. Our narrow tax base and insufficient revenue streams are the root cause of these unstable budget challenges. Overcoming these economic hurdles will require a lot of strategy, multi-pronged approach, and business development revenue diversification. Forging stronger partnerships between local government, business leaders, and community stakeholders will be key in creating a more resilient economic foundation and supporting sustainable growth for our city's future. Here in this map, you'll see this is the per capita still. All of the 7 counties, and Suisun by far is receiving the lowest, which speaks to the tax revenue. Our city manager will go into more detail on that. And then we'll just highlight our economic development challenges. So it's all right. So here we're really just focusing on putting our challenges the structural deficit. Our city faces a structural deficit due to the limited commercial tax base and very modest revenue growth. The limited business expansion. We face constraints. We have a lot of restricted area. Our city is 4 square miles. So within that restricted area, we have the marsh that is protected. So we have very little limited spaces left for any type of growth. So we're really focusing on doing infill approaches and making sure that we're being very strategic with the businesses and the opportunities that are coming to our city with a focus on ensuring that they're bringing a stronger tax revenue in. And then also regional competition from our neighboring communities. it really does create challenges for attracting. Suisun City, isn't really directly connected to the 80 interchange, so that really does prohibit a lot of the traffic coming through and entering into Suisun City unless they're traveling off the Highway 12 and potentially going to Lodi or Rich Vista. So we really don't generate a lot of the incoming traffic to a lot of our businesses here off the Sunset Heritage, the Marina Centers. So with that, it's really focusing on a strategic approach, and expanding our community is going to be essential for fiscal sustainability, employment opportunity, quality of life. Our approach is really focused on targeting business attraction and support existing businesses and downtown revitalization. So with that, we're going to head out over to our city manager, Mr. Prebula.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have the privilege to see if you can talk about where we're going. I think that's an important part of what I think all of you want to know, because it's what impacts you the most. So we go to the next slide. So a year ago, I sat here, then I say sat because I had a broken leg. So I have a little PTSD being back in this room doing this. But the resiliency plan is what we talked about. And we talked about it as an important ethos, what the city was going to do to improve itself beyond 5 years, beyond 10 years, and decades out. Part of Suisun's history is a long-standing roller coaster of getting slightly above water and then going back down, slightly above water and going back down, at least 5 to 10 year cycles. Isn't a good way to operate a city because it's hard to be consistent in service delivery, and it's hard to have a vision for the community of having so much trepidation with your fiscal uncertainty. So we looked at a couple areas. One, we knew that we had to have an economic development approach, and that started with talking about an economic development strategy and implementation plan. And in March of this year, I applaud the council. They approved that economic strategy and implementation plan that focuses on the infill current Suisun as it is today, which I'll get into more detail in a little bit. We also knew, as the mayor talked about, we had to pass a tax measure. And that was vitally important to essentially just keep our head above water. Our staff in most of our departments is anywhere between 70 or 80% of the staffing level that you would expect for those departments at a 30,000 resident community. They do an amazing job of efficiency and really actually providing a higher level service than one would anticipate from staffing levels, but really being able to increase our revenue to fill in those core gaps of staffing is going to put us at a really great foundation level for the city in the future. And so we knew we had to move in that direction. And then the piece of that was communication. And so a part of this journey has been constantly communicating with the public. We do it through an improved social media presence. If you followed us over the last 6 to 8 months, I think you've noticed that. We have a rep platform where you can directly ask the city any question and we'll answer in a video within a couple days. We have a student newsletter that goes out every month. And you'll see a different department head kind of leading that journey. And part of that, a lot of details about what's going on. Obviously, our council meetings, obviously town halls that we post on various topics, and obviously events like today, where we really come to you to give you a sense of where we're at. So when we talked about back a year ago on Measure S, we talked about the fact that Measure S in its current form was passed in 2016 to just hold the city to survive. And that really wasn't filling up our cup. We then said Measure S Plus was going to get us a little further there, but it still was only going to fill our cup up so much. And it wasn't going to be enough. And so that's why that resiliency plan you saw had infill and that economic multifaceted approach. But as you can see there still isn't enough. And I'll talk about why in a bit more slides. So our budget in fiscal year 25-26, which started yesterday, is $32.8 million roughly. That's buoyed by a scale of assets of about $1.5 million this year, which is one-time revenue that goes to help balance that budget. But if we remove that, you would see that we have a structural deficit that exists. And again, that's at 75 to 80% staffing level in there. Some might say, well, why is the cause of that? And a lot of it is the growth that we haven't done internally. The plans that we have not gotten to the finish line over the last 15 years. And so that's part of what council has embarked on to achieve and is really making great progress to get there. But this year's budget, through, I would say, great work from your city council and your department heads, they went through a multi-hour, 130 slide budget study session to really figure out how to get us to essentially continue to move forward, to continue to grow the organization from a culture and a consistency standpoint, continue to maintain a service delivery to the community at the current levels, while trying to figure out the path forward. That is really what we're trying to do. We're a boat that has holes in it, and we're trying to plug the holes and stay basically floating and improving long enough so some of the efforts that I will mention come to fruition in the next. That's just more of our numbers. All other funds, they're, government accounting is where I think people's brains go to die because there's just so many rules and funding, and so the general fund is really what your tax dollars immediately go to. The other funds are comprised of things like water funds, special capital funds, special roads funds, the dedicated money from a variety of sources have to just go for those purposes. So there's no discretion truly from the council except in the major general fund. This is an important thing that I think everyone should be aware of when you pay your property tax. You have a left side of your property tax bill and you have a right side of your property tax bill. The right side of your, I'll start backwards. The right side of your property tax bill is when you have assessments for things like school districts, or you live in a landscape and lighting district, you pay a certain amount to help fund the parks, things like that. That's on the right side. Those are called special assessments. The left side of your property tax bill is the traditional 1% of value property tax that most of us used to talk about. So when you pay that, for example, if you owned a home that was worth $500,000, that 1% is a $5,000 annual property tax bill. Many people believe when they pay that $5,000 that the city gets all $5,000. That's not the case. Suisun City gets a very small portion, 11.3 cents per dollar of that property tax bill or property tax payment. The majority actually goes to the county, almost 41 cents for service delivery. And then essentially the schools / state get the remaining 48-ish cents on the dollar. You might ask, how does that happen? So as cities incorporated in the years and decades, and a long time ago, as part of incorporating, you negotiated these kind of tax share agreements with the county. And ultimately, to these tax rates for cities can be as low as 6% or as high as some have 35%. Less likely on the high end, or in this 10 to 15 to 17 is probably where you're going to see many cities. The balance that was always tried to be weighed during that time is how best can both the city and the county provide services over time. The problem was, I think, the way we've evolved in the last 40 years in the state and the way revenue restrictions have come on many organizations, including Prop 13 in the late 70s, it made it really hard for that amount to keep happening. To use my daughter's slang lingo. And so that's why you see sales tax is what it does. That's why you see other parcel taxes that try to come out. That's why you see landscape lighting district taxes, why the fee structures the way they are. It's because this balance between city, county, and school districts dollars of property tax is based on a very old system that I think is very difficult, but our state constitution makes it almost unmanageable to undo this. So can this be renegotiated? I mean, in theory, yes. In all practicality, the answer is no. So as we talked about earlier, Measure S, I'll just briefly go over this again. It's important to note that that 6.9 million is specifically dedicated to public safety. Put all that money there because we understand how important public safety is, not just the community, but to economic development. So there are two key factors that we want to focus on as we continue down economic development. And believe it or not, none of them are related to businesses. It's public safety, it's education. You look at any city that you would dictate at the high level of having great economic development, the thing they actually have the best is public safety and education. So as we look at infill, as we look at possible expansion, those are two areas where we're going to continue to focus on because we know as a city, the economic development side will come from actually fixing and improving the public safety side, adding staff, adding facilities, make that better. And the education side, partnering with our school district to enhance that as we move on this journey. This is a slide that I put out in one of our presentations. And it's important to know because it's quantifying the gap that we're currently in from a financial perspective, I think is a key element. And as Vice Mayor Dawson mentioned earlier, operationally, and when we build in what we would need annually to improve our roads to go from a PCI or a pavement condition index of an F of around 53 to what is an acceptable grade to maintain roads which is above 70, it's about 8 to 9 million a year on its own. Again, the state of California through gas tax has not made any one city really do that progress easy. And so many cities and counties, in fact, Sonoma County is the only one as a collective, don't have a self-help roads tax yet. I think it's something that as a region, we need to look to assess because that's the way that many cities like ourselves will be able to kind of move that number up. Right now, we only get $500,000 a year in gas tax to deal with an $8 million problem. The rest of that is the staffing gap mostly that I talk about, and then some additional capital dollars to feed into a larger capital plan that Vice Mayor Dawson mentioned is lacking. And this is today's dollars. So really, we're at about $32 million in the general fund budget. It should be about $45 million today's dollars. So as we talk about infill and how many years we're going to look at that plan and possible expansion, as that timeline goes forward, so does the cost of that same level of service that I'm articulating here in this slide. So infill development strategy. This is where I get excited. So I need you to all open your imaginations now as I kind of talk about what our very large city infill plan is going to look like in the coming 0 to 5 years. I want to start at our 34-acre site. So it's a site where you see the water tank probably if you drove by it many times. City owns that 34-acre site. We are going through a process right now called the Surplus Land Act. Surplus Land Act is a mandated state process where the government entity is disposing of or selling off its own property. It's about a 6-month process, start to end. It's really the state's initiative was to allow affordable housing developers the opportunity, not the guarantee, to go ahead and be the first ones to buy the properties. Through that process, we have to engage in good faith negotiations, but we do not have to engage in not getting market value for the property. And so I say that because I know many individuals have commented in my a little over a year plus here that you're worried about affordable housing and the state's mandated that will be difficulty for us to have better economic vitality. It's not a mandate, we have to go through the process of good faith. But again, we can hold our market rate value in a 34-acre site like this that is very significant. So I just want to make sure you understand the context. So as we're talking about that 34-acre site, I want you to imagine 250 townhomes, modern, nice, professional townhomes, mixing the diversity of housing stock that we have in our community. I want you to imagine 75,000 square feet of commercial space. Think less on McDonald's, think more on entertainment spaces, think more on having escape rooms that people can go into. Think of if you have ever been to the veranda in Concord and the mixed use of both outdoor restaurants, public art spaces, entertainment zones, 1 to 2 really fancy theaters, things like that, what we would be looking to achieve with a developer in that area, along with potentially a boutique hotel, rooftop restaurant, and potentially a health clinic on that site and or a second fire station, that's what we call. Now, I'm giving you an illustrative vision. Ultimately, as we go through these processes with the community and developers, there could be some changes, but I want you to really understand the whole vision of what it looks like. So we go from that 34-acre site and we come down to, if you know on Lots Way, there's a Caltrans market ride that sits there. It's 2.86 acre site that is used about 10% of the volume in that site. So we realized that, and council has given us direction to go to a swap Caltrans. So we are engaging in about a 12-month process to essentially get that property under city ownership. We'll put a park and ride somewhere else at a much easier place that has less economic value. And we will sell off that property to a developer to do a high-end transit-oriented development. So think mixed use, so businesses and really amazing condos, really amazing market rate apartment type of housing. But it's so adjacent to our train station that it can really be an exciting place to bring again, higher incomes to the community and a different kind of housing type that should be beneficial to us. And I want to talk really quick about housing type as we have this issue. Many times, people wonder, why do we keep building market rate apartments? Why don't we build condos? Why don't we tell developers to build condos? It's a great question. The reason condos don't get built anymore is the legislation actually creates such a liability for the developer for 10 years and a day that developers just don't want to take that risk on it, so they flip to market rate apartments. Many 10 years and 1 day later converted to condos, but even then sometimes they don't want to go through that. We are embarking on a process that we'll be working on with the council in the very early 26 in our state legislature to actually look at getting that state law changed and adjusted. Because we believe condos are a great way, and when I say affordable housing, I mean small A, true affordable built homes that people can come in, young professionals, high-level professionals, seniors can downgrade into and live at an aging place. And so when I say many of that market rate apartment, what this vision I'm talking about, if this legislation can be changed, I think we'll have a lot of our Bay Area partners wanting to do it, turn that into actually condos that are going to be really amazing as well. So that's that Caltrans lot. And then I want to take you kind of down towards Civic Center Drive. And you probably see that very big lot next to Mike Day Park. That lot, we believe in early 26 will have an application to hopefully get that laws changed. Really beautiful market rate condos there. And then think of like a palazzo shopping, brewery type of experience all along the water in front of it. Again, activating the waterfront. We want to cross the water. We see 3 lots that have been fenced. We are working with that developer, and that developer is a pre-application already and should be in construction by early 26. And we're going to see seafood, steakhouse type of restaurants on 2 of them with 16 to 20 units above. Market rate, again, thinking raising an income level that Vice Mayor Dawson talked about per capita, and then 20 units of market rate on the other lot. Again, really activating that waterfront will be the greater way. Then as we continue to go down there, many of you know, we are in the process of entering a purchase and sale agreement with California Forever for 701 Main Street, which is the old bank building we own, the theater, and the Lawler House right now. They are going to go on a visioning exercise with the community after that purchase and sale agreement happens to get a sense of what you all want. But I want you to think of a really vibrant mixed-use community that has an arts and cultural flair to it on a commercial that has, again, beautiful market rate. If you've ever been in the riverfront in Napa, sat in a big chair, taking pictures, or been at the Dancing Feet, or we're thinking about public art in that sense down there. Again, activating and pushing everybody down there to really activate the new restaurants that might be there, but to also support the current great restaurants and businesses that are down there. The one thing that will be important for this journey, that is important for the council, important for me, is as we know this will create a lot of construction. It'll create a lot of issue for some of our restaurants in the area. And so finding ways to partner with grant opportunities and other things to help to ensure that those foundational businesses that have been with Suisun and really been through this journey are not gentrified out of as part of this, but enhanced by what we're trying to do. And so we know that's a vital piece of what we have to do as a city. It's not lost on us, and we're going to continue to work down that road as this infill development happens. So, you know, as you can see, that really activates kind of the beginning of our infill journey. There are other private lots kind of sprinkled throughout the community that will go into a similar kind of mixed-use model, where we're really going to be able to have, I think, excitement happen. There are also some big regional businesses like it's the city is going to start having conversations with to see how we can engage them to maybe do some really amazing projects around enhancing their business even further and having that regional attraction be a draw. Now, that infill is great, and it's what we want to do. And here's what I talked about for the bigger side. But before I go to that next slide, why not just infill then, right? That might be your question. Why not just infill? So if I did all that infill in the next 5 to 6 years, which is light speed timing to get there, but we are going to absolutely try to do it. And there's recent legislation passed in the state that makes infill development a little bit easier, a little bit quicker. So that helps us in that timeline. That probably adds in sales tax and property tax, TOT dollars, 5 to 6 million total, when it's all said and done, all built out. So that takes at today's dollar 32 to 38, and I'm still $7 million short. That is why we have to look for the other piece of that last circle that wasn't completed. Because even if we look at the growth of these things over time, and the values increasing and sales tax going further, we still are gonna have expenses slightly outpace revenue enough that we're not gonna be able to close that operating gap. And we need to find ways to do it. And we believe there are ways to gain efficiencies by growing that can be done in a way that can be fiscally prudent and positive to the city. And that's what we're exploring right now, that conversation. You've heard some things about how big Suisun City would get if we were to look at, explore, and go down the path of annexation. When we talk about annexation, and we're going to talk about it tonight, I want everyone to know that we're talking about a 40-year plan. Talking out of the plan, I'm a 42-year-old man, I will be 82 to 85 years old by the time if this were to occur, any full development out would happen. This is not going to happen overnight. We believe that if Suisun in its first 20 years of thinking about what we could be, grew to a pretty large scale, we would still be in line with Vacaville, Fairfield, be smaller than Vallejo. We are not by any way overtaking the other cities around us. What we would be looking to do is actually create more stability. Our ability to be a kind of stable partner when it comes to housing allocations, to deal with the state's housing demands. A better and more available partner to look at jobs, how we can keep those 13,000 people from leaving Suisun and others to make highways less from a programmatic standpoint and a jobs creation standpoint, traffic issues. Knowing we also need to look at the physical needs of Highway 12 along that journey. So it's really about about helping Suisun, but also helping the region, and that's a part of the conversation. So as we talk about expansion, I think it's important to know that we're in the beginning steps of that journey. We are going to work that team. It's such a great team that we've hired to put out a draft EIR. That draft EIR will be circulated. That draft EIR will get comments from the public and interested parties. That draft EIR will go through all the parameters and processes required, including all the many studies that need to be evaluated from not just the fiscal analysis. Does this actually make sense when we talk about infrastructure, when we talk about all the things that need to be built to expand in your city? Does it work? That's question number one. Does the water plan look right? Does the sewer plan look right? Does the environmental mitigation make sense? How do we get there? What in the development agreement can we get from the developer to build a more amazing school district for not just maybe Suisun, but also to help our regional partners in Fairfield? And like I said, across the region, there are going to be so many benefits. We could look at certain levels of public safety consolidation that you see, like Contra Costa County, that do amazing and really drive a level of efficiency. We could look at regional dispatch centers. We could look at an open parks district. The part of what I believe in this process, and council has talked about this blend of urban and rural that Suisun has, it is such a unique, beautiful thing, is how do we create a regional parks district as part of this expansion conversation for the whole county? So you can walk from Rio Vista to Suisun or Suisun to Fairfield, or from Fairfield down to Vallejo. I think this in Napa was a part of it with the bike trail that goes from American Canyon to Sable. We want to have access to bike and walk to those beautiful open spaces, right? Making them public, allowing ourselves to have Brush Ranch number 2, as we talked about, happen in the expanded system. There are so many elements that we can do within this project that it's really exciting. If we just really look at what are our interests and then how do we collectively try to get there together. There's always trade-offs. Nothing is perfect. Saving the environment and doing nothing for the housing and job crisis hurts the human, right? Hurts the parent that doesn't get to see their kids waiting 30 at night. Hurts the kid that doesn't get to have their parents there. It deals with quality of life issues. It deals with the stress that causes. So that's not helpful either. Neither is building concrete jungles. That doesn't help us as a human element either moving forward. It is a balance that we will have to weigh as we walk through this, as we always have. As we have when Vacaville grew and that tree, when Fairfield grew, as Dixon's growing, right? It is all about the trade-off and what that balance means.
I have lived here my whole life. My family has been in Solano County for over 100 years. Understand the heritage and the history and how important elements of that are. But as we move to the next generation, which is really what we're looking at doing all this for, next generations, it's important to have that balance. And I think as we go down the road, as your city manager, it's important for me to note that where we're going on this expansion journey, it's not a foregone conclusion. It is ultimately up to the 5 council members here and the data that comes out. They feel that's in the best interest of Suisun. Right, they ultimately have to laugh about whether that happens or not, right? Which none of anyone on this stage is here to control. But the reality is we would not go down this journey if we didn't think this was the best thing for the community and the region, that we could find a balance. And there's a lot of emotion when it comes to the whom this is involved with California travel. And you should have that emotion because everybody's entitled to it. As we talk about it, and as we have community meetings in the months and months to come, as your city manager, I just ask that we really try to focus on the interests that you have, that we have as a city, that the region has, and how we can collectively talk about what those interests are, instead of the position of yes or no. Because the position of yes or no doesn't move us anywhere. It doesn't get the city to understand where certain groups' interests might be, where we can actually help. They change the project to help that. But if we can sit down and have conversations, be valid about interests, out of that will come a way that I think we can find a lot more common ground than we actually think. Now, there are things we won't agree about, and that's okay. But I would rather focus on the many things that I think are common interests as we expand, deal with those, solidify those, figure out how the project can enhance those, and then let's figure out what some of those other issues are on the outskirts that are maybe not as aligned. That's not easy to do in an emotional conversation, but I think to really make this work, to have that balance, I think I'm asking this entire community as we move forward to continue to do that and to assume positive intent, which I understand can be difficult with the history, right, of the developer for some of you. But Suisun is leading this town. Suisun is leading this journey, right? And I think Suisun has showed you that we care about the community. We are trying to do this for the right reason. And so assume positive intent in what we're trying to do. And go with us along this journey so we can evaluate whether this works for us or not. As I said earlier, it's not a foregone conclusion.
And we're gonna pause here because we're not ready to explain the stage to finish it up, but I think I'll take that. I wanted to ensure we reserved at least 45 minutes to almost an hour of time to actually have a conversation with our community. The reason we designed this particular forum in this particular way, we actually received some really positive feedback that it's free, it's open to the public, we provide childcare, we provide snacks, it is a more informal setting. It really is that it provides a quick snapshot of where we currently are, but really opening dialogue for us to have a conversation that's really hard to do during city council meeting times when people are limited to 3 minutes. And we can sometimes only, depending on the section of the agenda, can only receive comment but not provide commentary back, versus let's hear some of your questions and let's actually engage in a dialogue. Before we dive into that particular portion of this meeting, in this forum really, a couple of things that I wanted to note about, or just send it off in regards to Suisun City and where we're going. The effects of where Suisun City currently is and our current pain points are very real. If we were to go back to the slide that says the average age or the average family age that we have in Suisun City, the biggest bucket, the number one, is 37 to 40 to 50 years old, 37 to 50. The second largest bucket is between the ages of 11 to 17 years old. So we have families, many families that are here, that we need to be mindful of the fact that most of those parents are commuting. The commute data shows anywhere between 30 minutes to 3 hours of daily commute. There is our school district. We have one local middle school at this time. This particular year received some of the highest service calls from our police department. There's a lot of behavioral pieces, social emotional pieces that we're trying to tend to with some of our children, our students here. And as we're trying to achieve a community school grant from the state, they did receive it, other schools in our district did. I was one of the members that was participating and just being able to contribute my own participation in the community chat with the principal at the time. And one of the data points stood out and it's remained with me, and it's almost haunting in a way. One of the data points that showed for some of the behavioral issues that we're seeing in our students today pointed to adult absenteeism. The parents aren't local. They are community, they're in traffic, they get home, so we have a child that is leaving at 3:30 from school and a parent that doesn't arrive to 7 or 8 p.m. We have children that we're not providing, that's where we step up with other programs, our after school programs and things like that, that we're trying to continue to enhance. But when we don't have local jobs, because we don't have local industry, that's the tie that we're trying to solve for. And when people have to commute long distances because we don't have enough industry here, that's the problem. And that's the problem we're trying to solve for. One of the ways that we attain tax revenues from our visitors, so thank everybody who visits us and dines in our local restaurants. We don't have enough, we need more. A lot of times when you have industry within your city, the local workforce that comes in participates in providing into the local economy by going and shopping and dining. Over 13,000 people, this is data from earlier this year, commute out where they go to dine and sometimes shop. It's not Suisun or here locally. So it's hurting us in that way as well. So it's one of the things, identifying how we reduce the gap that we have in our funding. How do we strategically work to move forward? And that's the phases. Phase 1 is all the infill development that we're trying to do. The next phase that we also parallel look for, can we expand and what does that look like? And that is the studies that we'll be engaging at this time. So I do want to provide an opportunity for members of council that we should provide any commentary at this time. And that will go to questions. Councilmember Washington.
So, thank you all for being here. I made a mistake last year of turning my head for the presentation. I had a really bad separating my neck. I got a lot of hair, so just want you to know why I came out to the audience. Also, I had surgery today, so I'm sorry I'm late. But I'm really glad to see all of you here today. It matters that we show up as a city and we come together for what we all want to do collectively to move forward. I just want to really thank the council and our city manager, our department heads for being here today. It matters. It matters when we all show up. It matters when we come together to provide solutions and pathways forward. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. So we actually already have some questions that want to be asked today. We'll start with Marilyn Farley.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, City Manager, residents of Suisun and elsewhere in the county. I appreciate this presentation and the effort that's gone into thinking about this. I share your sentiments about the issue with commuting. I think it's the scourge of all of Solano County, not just Suisun, that so many families are faced with this issue. And I appreciate the heartfelt attempt to try to solve this problem. It's a bona fide problem that you face, but the rest of the cities in Solano County also face it. Our Maybank 2050 plan does call for job corridor along Interstate 80. So I think there is some recognition that we have a major shortfall of jobs, and we have to find a way to address it. We hope that we don't address it by having the jobs leave our current city and going elsewhere. And I think the city manager has done an excellent job of laying out what some of the potential benefits from, this kind of a venture could be. I was looking at the studies that the county of Solano did, when, California Forever was considering being, developing in unincorporated county. They commissioned some studies from reputable consultants around the area. And they came up with $17 billion in infrastructure. And so, Bret, your city manager, is focusing on, how this will bring you revenue, but it's also going to bring you, that build out, $17 billion in debt. And that doesn't even include Highway 12, and it doesn't include the ongoing maintenance and operation of the city. And I think it would be responsible for the city to address the studies you have done to demonstrate what the revenue is going to be to pay for this, and what happens if instead of going bankrupt as a city of 30,000 people, you were to go bankrupt as a city of 400,000 people. Thank you.
Yes, for no reaction. You don't want any, bullying or
Ever support that kind of house.
Yeah, I know. It's not that, it's just respectful. That's okay, don't worry. So let's start with, addressing this particular question. So where we are with the studies. So we just started. So if you were to say Suisun City, are you ready to actually annex anything? The answer is no. That is the answer today from anybody. Because we don't have enough data to actually say, is this feasible? So much so that in the contract that we approved with our reimbursement agreement, we have language to say, if this does not make sense, there is an exit out for California Forever to turn to a different direction and work directly with the county. There's an exit out for both. However, if we are doing our work in good faith, then if California Forever decides, well, we want to make something different, there is a fee associated for that exit of $1 million. We put that in place because one of the things that Suisun City does not have time for is to be taken for a test drive by anyone. So in order to safeguard our own community, we're also safeguarding the benefit of community benefits in front for any type of negotiations. I currently sit as well as the mayor of Fairfield and the mayor of Rio Vista, as well as Travis, as well as Caltrans, as former Transportation Authority, quite a few other agencies. We all sit on a newly formed State Route 12, that's Highway 12, committee that is working on the enhancements of Highway 12. So Highway 12, the last study was done in 2009. During that study, that highway showed that the cities on that corridor, the cities of Suisun and cities of Rio Vista, were the poorest of the Solano County cities. In 4 years, less than 4 years, we will have held that position for 20 years as one of the poorest cities in Solano County. So one of the things we recognize is that status is unacceptable. And part of that, solving for that is actually Highway 12. So we are working with Caltrans specifically on how we're going to do the funding pieces and the design pieces on how we're going to improve Highway 12. The city of Rio Vista is currently hurting even more so at this time. There's a lot of truck traffic that is going within their streets right now. And it's something that needs to be sorely addressed. And so they've been great advocates of getting that movement forward. So the version of Highway 12 that is today is not going to be the version of Highway 12 in the future. Currently, we point to Highway 29 in Napa as an example of what projects that we've seen in the last 5 to 7 years of how the redesign of highways are taking place so that we can get commuters where they need to go. Highway 37 is definitely another one that affects our local community and commuters. I don't know if you wish to add anything else.
No, I think, very familiar with the county study. I think it's important to note the timing of that study versus what we're trying to do. There's a lot of assumptions that have to be made as you go along those journeys with fiscal analysis. And I think to our ability now, we have a lot more information than the county did with, they had to work with consultants to do that. And so it'll be interesting to see what our fiscal analysis as time goes on shows. By, infrastructure, operations, community buildings around schools, all of that is taken into the equation when I say this has to fiscally work for Suisun City and the region. So, definitely know these numbers can sound big, but they're also typically over a very long period of time. And typically a lot is handled in a variety of ways with the developer and how they develop things and do. So, want everyone to know it's definitely in front of mind as we look at the studies, but there'll be much more to come when we get our own fiscal analysis. A lot more, I think, less assumptions, a lot more clear attention on what the project will be. I think will help guide that as we kind of bring that to the public.
We have a following question by Mr. Dwayne. Questions or comments?
Very interesting. That, according to that, so I look for, as a very active, so but they, so. But that's it, or the book, it's very,
I'll take a question that anybody else wishes to answer as well. Yes. I'll begin if you wish to add. Out of the acreage that Suisun is considering to study, which is 2,000 acres, 25% of that is specifically to create a reserve around Travis space. One of the things that Suisun City has the opportunity to do is actually to restrict that land.
to actually make it forever protected for Travis Air Force Base, which it is not today. Not at all. That is why it's acceptable, even for a city to even look for annexation, there's a vulnerability. We should never have that level of vulnerability for our local Air Force Base, not only for our local economy and our local jobs, but for national security. In our own general plan, Suisun City has codified the importance of Travis Air Force Base and has made it its priority to also protect it. If this were to return to us in the studies and says, by you doing this, you would hurt Travis to this extent, I won't speak for my council, I don't know if there would be support to it, right? But one of the things that's important to note is that when you are working diligently to prioritize what you're trying to protect, your local community and your nation, those are not mutually exclusive. But there's one thing to say that, and another thing to actually codify it and put it in contractual writing to restrict that land. We'll pause there on Travis and I'll provide some commentary from the public. You can introduce yourself.
I'm Sandy Person. I am the executive director of the Travis Community Consortium. I wanted to just take a moment to address previous comments.
Sorry, so can you tell what your organization does for the
The Travis Community Consortium was formed in 2003 to advocate federally, locally, regionally for Travis Air Force Base issues, and it's comprised of public-private organizations. All 7 cities of Solano County, as well as the county, and a handful of small private interest groups are part of the Travis Community Consortium. And I've been part of it since its inception. And I just wanted to recognize the city of Suisun has made tremendous strides the past year, particularly to be interfacing and proactively involved in the constraints of Travis Air Force Base. I'm going to compliment the city manager, as well as the mayor and the city council for being every one of you I have seen at Travis events as a part to understand what the significance of the base is and what the issues are. And there are a lot of complex issues that I feel we are addressing. And I think I just wanted to underscore that I feel Suisun is being proactive in addressing them with integrity and honesty and willingness to adapt to changes or what we believe can impact Travis Air Force Base. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. In addition to that, the base commander, well, now Brigadier General, provided an opportunity for a civic leaders trip to Eglin Air Force Base and requested my presence to be there. One of the things he was trying to demonstrate to us local leaders is the importance of actual development. To a certain extent, it has to be very specific. To a certain extent, to support the Air Force members, housing and jobs to their family members, housing being the primary factor. So our Air Force leadership is very aware of what Suisun City is doing, is very aware of the direction we're heading. They're not in a position to provide commentary out front in the public, but at no moment has Suisun City done anything without informing Travis Air Force Base and their leadership of what we're contemplating. What we're doing is learning from each other what opportunities may exist, and we're working with individuals who can help guide that specifically. I know that our base commander has been diligently working on attaining for our local Air Force Base the same level of an individual that we saw at Eglin, which is from the military perspective, how to engage in development around their Air Force military. So they're working on getting that classification that requires something different, and but they're diligently working so that they can have a seat at the table with us that they currently do not have at this time. So that's just based on it.
Thank you. So just for the record, I do want to mention that running for office is always protecting Travis, saving Travis. That's the one thing that I ran on. And as somebody mentioned, it is our national security asset. I was put on the record, if there's any impact to Travis, so you can get it, not only for that reason, but also because I have my brother serving in the Air Force as a lieutenant colonel. So just for that reason, I'm doing my due diligence, but I think I want to see what the reports say. And to be honest, that's why I'm just listening tonight. Thank you for your comments and taking note. This is really great. Thank you for that.
Thank you, thank you, Sandy, for speaking up. I think this is a great opportunity that was mentioned today to talk about what the city is doing. In regards to South Beach, that's a huge project that we're working on together. That wasn't really brought up today, so I would love for the public to hear an update on where we are in that process. Thank you. Oh, sorry, the Southgate is a logistics center by Buzzards. We are working with the county, from my understanding, to make that happen, so any great opportunity to speak to that right now. To make what? I'm sorry, I was requesting an update for the public on the Buzzards South Logistics Center by Travis Air Force Base. I don't believe it wasn't brought up, but it's a great, since we have Sandy, here's a great opportunity of how we're working with the county and Travis to ensure that that partnership happens.
I would say one of the things that we have done is sat with the county and the developer of that project to provide an update on where they are in that status and to listen to the concerns of the county, and I'm taking this very seriously. At this time, there is no status update about that project itself. It's at a standstill because there's more work to be done. And I think the onus is on the developer where they said, okay, again, I get what your community is saying, I get what you're doing, and I get the security issue with the South Gate for Travis Air Force Base. Let's figure this out. I am aware that the developer has been working with the Department of Defense to potentially do something that is more directly supportive of Travis directly. There's no additional update for the memorial.
They're good 100%.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if you said that. We have a project, it's like there's no project, so I just wanted to make sure. And we're taking questions from the floor, so feel free to come up to the microphone and ask a question. Okay, I'll have Michael, do we have a microphone also shared out? I think it's on the screen.
Thank you, Mike. And I want to, give where we are, so Health Forever, these out-of-town plans, taken into our county. And to build in our county, because of our tradition, 40-year-long tradition of early growth, they had to do one of two things. They had to go directly to the or they had to get an annexation by a city. They attempted to go to. And the poll showed them that 70% of small county voters opposed what they were doing. And therefore, they withdrew that initiative. Having failed there, they went to you to bail them out, to annex. You are literally undermining democracy. And I want to bring up that when, 1 week ago, the county brought this up, when you voted for the reimbursement agreement, the county that day had explicitly asked you to delay. And not only did you decline the county's request, but you ignored it. It didn't come up at that meeting. And then last week, the county discussed this, and they had this discussion of just how outside the box your proposal is. First, you are proposing to build a city the size of Oakland without a comprehensive general plan update, with a general plan amendment that you might use for a parking. You are proposing to have an environmental impact report analyzing a proposal that hasn't been written yet. All the public has is a simple map that was proposed one meeting. And then during the meeting of where you adopted the reimbursement agreement, that reimbursement agreement apparently that was published on Thursday had been written by California and committed you to vote in favor of the annexation. Someone observed that clause was in there and changed it and republished it the day of the meeting. Now, at last week's Board of Supervisors meeting, the county council was convinced that your commitment is still in that agreement, is still in the reimbursement. So let me ask you, as city attorney, everyone trusts you. So is it still in there? The commitment to vote in favor.
So the city council is not making any commitment to approve the project. The environmental impact report is going to be prepared. It's going to have all the studies in it. We're going to address all the issues and raised tonight, including infrastructure, water, sewer, everything. The city council will at that time be able to review after receiving public comment from the public as well as any interested party. In order to totally the city council's discretions. They approved the EIR as well as proposed annexation over the two block at that time.
What makes you feel better about that is different than interpretation last Tuesday. So, that means.
Microphone, please.
I disagree with the county council's interpretation. Yes, I listened to that meeting too. I did not attend, but I did listen to it. And I disagree with her.
And if I could add to that, this narrative that it somehow had a clause in it around mandating the council to approve never existed. The only thing that was changed in that agreement that I made clear during that meeting was the city of Rio Vista and our partnerships who kind of go through this journey together asked us to change some non-substantive sentences in early clauses of it. But the change that you're requiring never happened. It was never needed to be changed. Like I said, we have not only our city attorney, but one of the utmost experts in this world that still uses a firm, and they feel the same as Mr. Enright does about that. I also want to make it clear that when we talk about the general plan for the county, the characterization that the county's general plan is the be-all, end-all way that this happens. It's actually not the only way that annexations occur or development or general plan discussions occur on what will happen in the region. In fact, the county doesn't become in any part of the state the leader that is to dictate. What really happens in practice is that cities look at their need for their communities and they look at their expansion plans. And cities and counties do their general plans respectively, and they should play off each other. But one is not going to the principal's office to show them their work to do it. The two intertwine, so much so that LAFCO says, hey, when there's instances where general plan of both the county and the city don't agree, you should get together to find a common ground to get to a place to move forward collectively for both. It is not one coming down on the other, and I said this to the county board of supervisors during the meeting. It's a way that two agencies can work to support each other, but in their own independent legal process. And it's important to note that that is what Suisun City is going to do right now. We are going down our legally allowed process of annexation. And that same board of supervisors meetings, it's important. It's been the city's commented, and I've commented to the board and the CAO, that the characterization of something that happened around the Four Seas meeting, that they felt like that we should be stopping while they started their general plan process. It's not in fact what happened. It's not in fact the interpretation of the cities themselves, Vacaville, Dixon, Rio Vista, who are also in annexation journeys. None of them felt like that comment of stopping was clear at all. It was more that we're gonna continue on this journey to figure out where everyone else is at, but not just stop and do nothing. And so it's important to note, the factual reality that's what's going on. And I think that's important, especially when I talk about the emotion that comes to this topic, that we really ensure we're being very clear on what is actually going on and what documents are actually being put out. Because we really want to make sure there's clarity.
My interpretation of the position in terms of yours, that is, their point about the 4Cs meeting is that you are running on a timetable that appears to be dictated by California Forever, getting way in front of the county and way in front of any of the other cities. And what they were looking for is please delay by a few weeks. And again, not only did you decline that, but you ignored it. And their point was that you are not collaborating with the other cities or with the county of Solano, that you are going off by yourself to build. Again, this is not a normal annexation. And they, at the Board of Supervisors meeting, they said the only comparable annexation in the history of California is the annexation of the San Fernando Valley by the city of Los Angeles. You are talking about building without any planning, without any disclosure to me. You're talking about building a city the size of Oakland. You're talking about Suisun City and the Fairfield Suisun Unified School District. Taking on the commitments, the financial commitments, as someone said, the infrastructure commitments of a city the size of Oakland. And what happens is you get it's Ponzi scheme, you get upfront financial benefit in exchange for long-term financial commitments. And it's typically a loser. So that was my interpretation of this, of the county's position. They were way off the road.
Yeah, so I think it's important, to denote, the factual. So number one, let me be very clear. California Forever doesn't write our agreements. California Forever doesn't do anything that you're, insinuating that actually doesn't happen. It's not California Forever's timeline, it's the collective timeline as we go through the process of evaluating work. All the things you're questioning around, does this fiscally work? What is the traffic plan? What is the water plan? What is the sewer plan? As the mayor mentioned, we are in the beginning journeys, as you know, and hitting all of those studies and evaluating them with our expert team to see where we're at. So when you say the public doesn't have anything else, they wouldn't. They wouldn't in an EIR process we did on a Highway 12 Logistics Center at this point in time, because the work has to be done. Studies have to be evaluated. We need to bring them back to the council when that time has come. We need to have the community conversations to understand what the community would want expansion to look like in various areas around Parks and Rec, or housing, or jobs, or dealing with transportation. And so we are on that journey now to be able to provide that information, to be able to allow council to make the decision that they want to do when we reach that point. And I think it's an important point to know that anything else is an assumption right now. It's an assumption without data behind it, because we, Suisun City, hasn't done studies. And I am definitely not frustrating my other city managers and their collectives, because I talk to them all the time. They know this journey. They are supporting me in this journey. We may disagree on things, but by no means do they feel like I'm running a marathon and lapses of them. In addition
We're gonna limit the time.
Let me wind up, so.
So I'm also gonna ask you to be, give you time, I'm just gonna, we're about 15 minutes beyond to close this, so I'll ask you to wrap up.
Maybe. We have to imagine what this is like, those of us who. Suisun has basically paid for an embedded, from our point of view, advocate, an embedded analyst within the city. That I've never heard of this idea of payments if you meet particular milepost, that, $3.5 billion, benefit, community benefit payment if you do pass this, an incentive to make a decision in a particular direction. A $6.5 billion benefit, community benefit, if it goes past landfill. You can see from the point of view of someone who doesn't think that this is a good idea, that this sounds like a breach of ethics that is pushing the direction of approval of project. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I know the city attorney had their microphone ready.
Well, I was just gonna comment that the process, exactly what the annexations are, right? This is a large annexation. I don't know about San Diego Valley, but I know that other large annexations, developments, the home range has been trying to develop for years. So it's a long-term process. We're at the beginning stage here. We haven't completed any of the studies. We haven't even started the studies. So this is gonna be a long-term process, and it's really premature or speculative to indicate what the analysis would be. But the city has every right to look at annexation and to start the process. And if the studies come back and if the environmental impact report and all the other reports are supportive of the project for the county to submit to LAFCO a proposal to expand the city limits, increase our sphere of influence, the new project within the ethical general plan of the city, if LAFCO and with the city zoning ordinances. So this is nothing unique. It's large in scale, but we do this all the time with projects that are outside a jurisdiction's limit, where we increase the sphere of influence and annex properties. And we are following the exact same process that any other city follow in the state of California.
And the last thing I know you want to go back to there is, we went to California first. They did not come to us. When I was authorized by the council to do so, I went to them to explore this, because it's what is needed versus soon, as you saw through the slides today. So I want to make that very clear, because I think that's really important. Okay, thanks.
So this, you said this was normal. I've been watching cities for 35 years. I have never seen this. I've never seen an annexation this far out of the sphere of influence. I've never seen an annexation of this size that didn't have a comprehensive general plan amendment. I've never seen a incentive program to pass something in the direction of the developer. I've never seen, there are like 10 things that I have never seen ever. And this is not normal. This is not a normal scale. Again, we are talking about something the size of Oakland.
Sir,
Yeah,
thank you. I think that a couple of things. We're noting all of that for the record, because one of the things that we want to do, we've already announced we'll be doing workshops specifically to bring the community together for the only topic to be California forever. This will require discussion for the next 2 to 3 years, because I think the studies will take at minimum 2 to 3 years for them to come back based on the attorney's Stone Reeves, that was their feedback to us. So it will take some time. So this will be something we'll be engaged in for a while, but I think the commentary is coming. I think it's important to know what are you thinking that, like, wait, we need to double check this? Absolutely. Let's make sure that we're double checking some things so we can able to answer some of those questions. When we wrap up this comment, we'll have people on. One of the things that I do want to note, so what is the area that is being explored? As was mentioned, explored and studied is 22,000 acres. 25% of that directly goes to protect Trappist and Forest space. Over 1,000 acres goes, if we're able to do so, to industry. We need industry. We don't have jobs. We don't have enough tax revenue. That is what is our priority. How can we get land for industry? There is nowhere in Suisun to provide more industry opportunity. and we absolutely need it. The next approximate 15,000 acres that we take the anywhere between 40 to 70 years to potentially develop, if the studies make sense, is for all the other services, housing, travel, all the other services. Even at that account, even if we grow, people are quoting, 9 times our size, we are still smaller than the lake. So people are talking about size of Oakland, actually acreage is still smaller than the lake. And so one of the things that I just want to provide some context is at 22,000 acres plus our 4.4 acres still makes us in the area that we bridge, not in the land we would actually put people in, because 25% goes directly to traffic, but it's the size of our population or potential services, service area money. So just to provide a little context, as people are looking for the numbers of what they represent. Let me go ahead and ask member to come back.
Hi, my name is Jenalee. I'm the room. I've lived here since 1987. You talked a lot about these studies. Please clarify, where's all the money coming for these studies?
Have the attorney actually respond.
Studies are all going to be paid for by the people. They are.
Like California for it.
Yes, they are. Which is
Thank you,
normal.
that speaks volumes. Thank you.
Well, that's the normal process. The cities don't have money.
Yes, so that is the law.
City.
So in every city, the normal process is the developers pay for the studies. So the Bizo's development that we have, Bizo's developed, right? So that is absolutely normal in the process. People may not like it because of California, wherever it is in their minds. And I think that that's a fair position to have. You don't mind that they're paying for it. What we do is provide safeguards. Like what they do is fund a financial account, and I'll ask their finance director, Joel, if you can help explain like how funding comes to the city and then what happens and where it's housed and things like that.
Well, that's something I just wanted to emphasize, that funding comes to the city, and then the city pays the consultants. No control by the developers. So the city has control over the contents of it. But the developer has to be first, this case, the unfunded cost in the city to pay for it.
No, I think the attorney covered that.
Yes, and so what happens with the annexation is that there's an opportunity for something to come under local control. The only reason we're able to actually even have discussions about where is it, is because it's under our control now, right? Or open scrutiny. When you have someone mentioned earlier about a ballot and the vote last year, there were multiple polling data, and it was mixed. Some data was saying it would pass, some data said it was guaranteed to pass. There is mixed polling out there. So one of the things that has happened since 24, that would happen by 26, is that I believe strongly to members of working families and people who are hurting right now may make that absolutely feasible in 26 for a ballot to pass. What happens if it passes? We, Suisun City, has no control of the direct effects that are going to happen to us. Rio Vista has no control of the effects that are going to happen to them. So what you're finding is that two cities recognized immediately that they're about to get directly negatively impacted by something that we don't control, that we could be encroached upon, how we were on the west side by the city of Fairfield, to be encroached upon on the east side by the East Along Line with no control of what that happens to our community, nor any revenue that comes into our community. This is the opportunity that Suisun has to actually dictate terms of what we would like to see happen. The most important thing that Suisun controls is what will be zoned, right? Studies will help us understand the zoning and the appropriate way to develop over time. And how much? This is what we're studying. The city has not committed to how much, right? So that's just an overview. That's part of our journey. Do we have another question? Okay.
I don't really have a question, but I do have a comment. Julie Daigle, I'm an educator here in Swanee County. I've been educating the littles for 40 years. And I have been hearing the cries and voices of the parents and grandparents and the children on what their needs are. And I want to commend you for taking the full leadership that you're doing, because you're moving in the right direction. The new generation speaks of this. If you go on YouTube and you listen to social media, this is what you're seeing. The new generation is in need of this area to grow. The teachers are crying out for this. They need new educational models to be built. They need a community that's going to serve all the people. The seniors that I have worked with are crying out because they need new types of senior models to be built. There are teams of us that have been working for decades right now. I am one. I live in Venetia, and I've been working tirelessly to build Montessori schools in particular that are some of the leading educational models in the world. I see Montessori schools coming to Suisun. I see your educational model being improved. I see the parents being so happy to be able to drop their children off every day. And if you build more homes, if you build Montessori schools, the people will come. Bret, you said it perfectly. Where do people go? They go where the education is of a high standard. That's where they go. I'm working on a blueprint for your city to help you build those types of educational models that will meet the needs of the residents. So I can keep going. Other comment, we have two. We also have one in the back. We have two. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3.
As someone that moved here as a young child, 1960, that was nothing here. So to grow and watch what has come, and then to see what more needs to come, is a statement that I can make. There was a time, years back, when there were consequences about everything that came up. Fairfield, Suisun, Alma County. Yes, I was part of the Walmart thing, but they was trying to get that passed. Was even actually going to get water. And you know what those people said? When they got off the desk, they all came down and said they wish they had somebody in their community like that. I'm not afraid to speak out. I'm not afraid to support what needs to be done. And I've said it before in our council meetings. It's not about what I need. It's not about what all of you need. It's about what our city needs. And to see our city struggle all the years it has struggled with no place to go, no revenue, houses, low income, seniors, we need it all. Where's the money gonna come from? Bret, you don't have it. Council members, you don't have it. So how do we get there? Your restaurant's not gonna provide it. We all need to work together. Your business is not gonna do it. But we've got to come up with ways to do it and make our city better because we care about our city. If we didn't care about our city, we wouldn't still be here. That's all I want to say. It's the city and what our city needs, not so much. Take me out of it if I was a native and didn't want this. What does the city need? What do my children need? What do my grandchildren need? It's not going to benefit me, these homes or these businesses. I'm an old lady. I won't even be around. But people that come after me, just like when I was a kid, people worked to get things going and done. That was the time when I came here, they didn't even want black people in Fairfield. They stuck them all in Suisun, on Benton Court, on Travis Court. They didn't want them on water. I'm speaking truth to power right now. And that's all I want to say. We've got to think about what Suisun needs to do and focus on how we can work together. That's the key, working together. Talking about solutions, coming up with ideas. I may not like what you say, I see the need. I may not like what you say, but let's sit down and talk about it. Can I get a little rock? Working together, that's my message.
Good evening, Suisun community. I just want to say thank you to the city manager and also to the Suisun City Beautification Committee for the warm welcome. My name is Karina Colantoni and I'm the incoming principal at Crystal Middle School. And this is
Reagan China.
And so we just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for thinking of our beloved students and families. We are here, we're part of the community, and as being here today is an act to us to show that we love our students. So anything that we can do to really empower our students, they need volunteering opportunities, they need role models, and they need teachers. So if anyone is interested in working with us, which is an amazing place to work, we have flyers here for everyone. Our kids cannot start the school year without their teachers. Please collaborate with us. We want to be a part of the community, so come volunteer with us. We have t-shirts, we have hats, and it's going to be a great school year. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you, City Manager.
Thank you. Cause for. That one.
Who's with their help?
Hello, everyone. My Essex could go. I'm being probably a little different, breath of fresh air. I heard different ideas, different rallying points and things like that. Hearing activity talking about what we have in front of us, a lot of the local people that we actually have in this area. We'll talk about a rally point, guys, Super Bowl thing. I've been thinking always right around. Even for 707 day, which is July 7th. I just want people to have pride in their city, in their county, and other things. But if you listen from Facebook, everywhere else, push me with this here, left or right, left or right. What can we focus on first? Yeah, these little days that we can rally on 707 days, put out your hat. Let's rally, get somebody. But the real thing I was talking about is Super Bowl. We have an opportunity coming up where I go out and this county, this city, we're not represented on an outside basis of what makes other industries, people, influencers, not just football. They have faith in things. They have things for their children, talking to the fire department, things I'm reaching out to things of now, so we don't have so much argument. I'm 37. I think I'm the average age there. And I hear the left to right, left to right, or do I do Alma, the RPMA commission, I look at the opportunities, the things that we have behind us and what we can take advantage of that. So really, this is just my call out to the city so to say, we can rally about the left to right, but if we can bring in others I worked with that in Israel, Jenalee and them, I worked with the chambers, I've worked on Greenbelt, I worked on all these sides just to bring a rally weight like that. Don't just have to argue, but we can move towards something. Let's find these small hanging fruits. These things will bring attraction in, not argue out. Because even when I go out, they're laughing at us because we're arguing. And if we're talking about funders that people want to invest in, we have choice for that. But if we can find these small hanging fruits, I know there's something out there in the world where decisions be made. But right now, we find all the hanging fruits at the city to rally on, to bring more funding, so we can see who is interested with athletes, with other tech companies, with other environmental companies, so we can get in there and talk to our local businesses like our coming with fighting on the waterfront. I just wanted to bring people into here, that's just my opinion, as a 37-year-old hearing of all the intercontinental fighting. But we have to represent ourselves differently. We are approaching others in the city, and that's just my honest opinion.
And we have, we do want to have, and we, we have, okay, back to, Councilman Shepherd. So we have another hand raised.
Hi, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Sean Robert. I go to comic book store downtown. I wanted to say thank you to Bret for what he showed about the infill downtown. Improving. We're in Jenalee restaurant. You're getting ready to come in. I was putting glass top. And I talked about the house. 12 years, I was 12 years old. It's been a long time. I was both cool. That I've heard in this facility, the changes coming. We're going to see all this amazing stuff happen. Nothing's happening. What's happened in the last year and a half? It's moving here and people that are finding all the skies. 40 years. Jenalee, one of the first people that invested in this new business, this new restaurant. Vinny Grill is a wonderful part of our community, but it needs to be thriving, just like my store. Direct Res is one of the best stores in the Bay Area. You know, so I'm very excited that we have possible people wanting to come in and funds, because as Ms. Courtney said, I didn't have to. Jenalee invested her whole life savings to get where it was to build her restaurant. She doesn't have the money for the rest of the now, but there are people out here now that want to put millions, if not tens of millions, into our city to fund it and make it a wonderful place it deserves to be. And I want to thank everyone for all the steps that they've done to get there. And I hope that it moves at the right speed you're expecting, because we sure have. And you know, thank you.
Q&A, one hand perspective, when we get back to the dais, we can close.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chi Watch, and I am a student resident. And I just want to first say thank you to you all for hosting this event. I really appreciate this opportunity to, be a part of this public open forum that I hope that we going forward can have more of, especially in this process of exploring annexation. And on that point, I think, as you look around the room here, it's not a full room. So the community is not actually, I would say, totally aware of this, of what's going on. And so I would like to ask you to, going forward, to put more effort into investing in actually getting community feedback and going out to communities and talking with neighbors and informing folks, on the facts, on the data. And as you know, there's a large Hispanic community too. And so ways to make it more accessible, for example, having, it in Spanish for folks to actually understand what's going on. And then I also want to speak on this theme of innovation, opportunity, new horizons. A lot of things that sound very exciting. Who doesn't want that? I think we all want for our city, people who live here, for us to be able to thrive and to be successful and to grow together and have opportunities. I don't question that at all. Why would we not want that for our own community? But I think we also have to be careful with our approach. I think it's important that we, first and foremost, be aligned with the county that we are in, with Suisun County, with our neighbors. And up until now, your actions have unfortunately shown that you are not aligning with the county several folks have spoken before, the Solano County Supervisor has, asked for this timeline to slow down, We're not asking for it to be stopped, paused, to not further explore, but to simply take the time to do this with care and not to rush it through because maybe there is some impending timeline with whoever you're working with. And so I think it's really important to emphasize again that we must stay aligned with Solano County. And that's what I'm not seeing right now. And so I really urge you to, as we move forward, to not ignore what the rest of the county is advising us to do and to work with them. Because that's not happening currently. The other thing that I want to say is that this presentation today, there has been a theme, of also painting us as in a dire situation. And I recognize that. I'm also worried for our future as a community, financially. I am curious though, but it hasn't been addressed in the presentation, is how did we get to this spot? How do we get to this deficit? And it may be, it's years and years of previous council's decisions that have led us to this point. But I think it would be helpful to, see the current, for example, $32 million budget. What components of it is going towards public safety, towards this other department? Like, I think it would be helpful to see that breakdown clearly and to identify what might not be managed well. Because the way that it's been described to student in its current state is that it's a sinking ship. And so what do you do when a ship is sinking? There can be temporary short-term solutions, but ultimately there's a root cause that we have to address, which is the hole. And so I understand that there is a need to balance different approaches to addressing our situation. I agree with that. It cannot be a one solution thing. But this approach of annexation does not address the hole that we have right now. That is a more immediate issue that I'm still curious. I don't know how are we going to address that immediate hole? Like you said, this annexation process is going to be a 40-year plan, at least. And with that, we've heard a lot about the opportunities and all these new ways of out-of-box thinking, which I'm not opposed against. But 40 years, that's not going to be enough time for us to be addressing the dire immediate needs of right now, of the next few years. And so that's what I'm curious of what your response is to that. To not, go build another ship, but to address the hole right now.
Thank you. That's a really great comment and question.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have one more thing to say. And so I think lastly, the most important thing of all is this is going to impact everyone. And this are in a small little community of Suisun and also regionally, Solano County. And so when something that is so important is going to be impacting everyone, I truly believe that this should be done in the most democratic way. And that means having a public vote. I truly don't understand why that is being avoided. I think that's the elephant in the room. This is not to say that I'm opposing these ideas, these potential strategies to move forward, but I'm saying that we must move forward in a democratic way that involves everyone coming to the table and having the ability to voice and to make the decision. So I think the way that it's currently being done, it's not allowing that, for the public to truly weigh in, and decide together as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna take, parts of this. How did we get here? So Suisun City was predominantly funded for quite some time by redevelopment funds. So these were state funds that came and provided a lot of funding to the city. In 2012, the state moved that program. Suisun City was one very heavily affected city. So from 2012, the financial history of the city kind of starts showing that when they removed that funding, it went straight into a deficit. They went into 2013, and the city manager at the time, in their reporting, their finance reporting for the budget of the year, starts telling the story, we don't have money to sustain. And so 2013, 2014, 2015, that council decides we don't have enough money to sustain because what don't we have? I'll say it again, industry. We don't have industry. Suisun City wasn't built on industry. So because of that, that council in 2015 decides to go to their public and say, can you help us bridge that financial gap? Can we pass a tax measure? In 2016, the community passed Measure S funding. What Measure S has done was just provide a Band-Aid in the structural deficit that we carry, right? It was about to dissolve in 26, if it did pass this past year. So we now can see the extension of Measure S, but the timeline for Measure S is up until 2015. So part of what you see as a reaction of a sense of urgency in how we're developing is we actually have a fiscal cliff in 15 years. So part of the way that we're addressing the current financial needs is all the infill development that the city manager talked about. All of that infill development, the 34 acres, the infill development in downtown, some of the other areas, all of that will be developed to help us start fixing that structural deficit. The data back from our consultants that did all of the deep dive on it shows that even if we build out our community, we still do not have the finances to sustain us completely. So the first goal for us is, can we annex land for industry? Beyond that, that's what we'll continue to explore, and it may not make sense. We may not come into it anymore, but we do need land for industry and see where we go from there. The other piece that I just want to quickly note is we did, and I credit our finance director and our team, we did a study budget session for ourselves, for the public, for about 4 hours that went into a deep dive of the city's finances available to the public. Happy to resurface some of that material so that you can make a note of resurfacing that material so that the members of the community who didn't have the opportunity to attend that meeting or see the video or see the material have direct access to, I think, 134 slides of a deep dive into our finances. It kind of gives you a better picture of where we are. And like, you know, there's, as was mentioned earlier, there's different ways to annex land. We're exploring one, right? I believe many, and I was looking at articles from a year ago, voters were really happy that it didn't go to the ballot. People were celebrating that it didn't make it to the ballot. I believe there was even the supervisors who helped negotiate something so that it actually did reach the ballot, right? And so I'm not really sure how to interpret that piece about the articles that from a year ago show that people were really excited and celebrating that it did make it to the ballot. So I think that when Suisun enters the picture, I think the community had celebrated, it did go to a ballot to start with, but I do have to start closing commentary, so bring it to Councilmember Shepherd, and then we're going to close, thank you, Councilmember Pop.
It's been a long night. I'm really here to Suisun. I love the city. I've heard everybody. Everybody has perceptions. But it's the negative that I'm kind of concerned about. I do take my hat off to Bret, our city manager. He's doing everything. He's instructed by his council with transparency. And I'm a woman of integrity. I have a military family. So that Travis Air Force Base is always my first and foremost concern and priority to protect. I'm in these meetings, and I guarantee we are being very transparent. you gotta be optimistic, but it's a hard job. There's a lot of us out there, but we're in here together tonight. So I'm hoping we can move forward with, support of the council, the city manager. Just pray for us all to be able to come together and make this happen where it's gonna outlive majority of us. But we have our children that are gonna leave a legacy. And I'm looking forward to us finally growing this city and just living here and dying here. So, I'm in it 100%, but I do want to take my hat off to my team. We are working very hard, we're collaborating, we're honest, and we're bringing everything we communicate to the dais to share. So there's no secrets, but again, nothing's perfect, but just be patient, be optimistic, and that's all I can see at this point, but I'm hopeful we're going in the right direction. Thank you. Councilmember Pop.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to recognize, we do have Mr. Don, I forget the last name, Don. But your street light issue is being taken care of, and the person from AG is here, and I want to commend Clay for really getting everybody together to make that happen. The second thing is, as I was driving from the Bay Area, apologies for being late, my son called me, said, "Hey, Dad." I said, "Yes, son." He goes, "You forgot to mention your comments last night that I wanted to seaside in the park." And then I hear my daughter in the back. She goes, "Yeah, and I want swings." I said, "Well, let me explain how government kind of works." He's like, "Well, explain it to me." I said, "When you want to play your PlayStation 5, and I say, go ask Mom." And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "When Mom wants to say no, just like, go ask Grandpa." And then Grandpa says, "Grandma." He's like, "Yeah." I said, "There's going to be a long process. It might take some time. But what better opportunity when we have the Parks and Rec director here to kind of bring that up." So I've done my due diligence. So thank you for that. I would like to wrap it up. Thank you for your time. Honestly, Mayor, I think this is great, and I'm hoping if we do have a next conversation strictly for California Forever, I like this format. I think, that we can have one that's good for pretend testing. So thank you.
Yes, I think that was one of the things that I was thinking of when we also made the last one was in the fall, there will be the kickoff for town hall meetings specifically just for California Department, because there's huge interest, and we need to all kind of dive in collectively as a committee and be critical about it. Let me say this, everybody else wishes to provide any commentary. So I'll say this for myself. I'm here because I represent our community. 4 out of the 5 of us grew up right here in Suisun City, went to our local elementary schools, and we have been hurting as a community for a long time. When I think about the work that we're doing and we're looking ahead, I think of what do we need to do to ensure the future of Suisun City and how we're going to do it. There's been a lot of conversation here focused on California Forever. California Forever will have to speak for themselves. We're here to defend our community, the future of our city. They're talking about investing in properties in downtown Suisun. I see representatives of theirs here tonight. One of the things that I'll say, I think it will be important. California Forever speak directly to the community. What does the community want to see? Because it's important the community tell them directly. If you're going to be in this community, you got to level up here. What does that look like? And I think the opportunity for that is up to our community itself. For us, it's about strategy, about where we're going, doing our due diligence, doing the work, being presented with that, collectively analyzing it together and seeing where we go. We're a little early in like what's going to happen at the end, but we're saying today is we're looking far enough ahead that Suisun City doesn't get left behind how it's been so far. So more work to be done. Thank you all for the candid conversation. This is really productive, and I'm grateful for everybody being here. Thank you. A shout out to the team who helped set all of this up. Thank you all for being here, and we're going to adjourn tonight at
And the fact that they're trying to get that downtown. Practical of trying to buy their way. It's perception.
Perception, exactly. That's
And
right.
you cannot
Perception.
deny.
Exactly. Everybody gonna see.
They're not. Wait, I'll